Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thanks for being here today. Today's episode is called Sleep and Dreams, the Ultimate Nighttime Duo. Today I'm talking to Leah Bolen, someone who knows sleep and dreams inside and out, both from years of study and from real-life experience. She's a certified integrative adult sleep coach and dream work practitioner with 3 decades of expertise in understanding how rest and dreams impact our well-being. You know, this podcast is for you if you know you need to change something or you just want to change something. Maybe it's your career, your health, or something else, and you don't know where to start. And you're wondering if this is the right stage or age to do so. Or maybe you're that person caught in analysis paralysis. I know, and I see and I understand you. I used to feel the same way. But if you stay tuned and keep watching and keep listening, you'll find a tip or two and a step that'll take you to the next step. And it's just starting with one little step. So be sure, as a reminder, where you can find this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, iHeart, and Spotify. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get into today's episode and meet my guest, Leah Bolen. Hi, Leah.
Hi, how are you, Susie?
I'm great, thanks. Thank you so much for being on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm so excited about this conversation today because, as I said before we started, there are so many people who struggle with sleep issues, but also are curious about dreams. And I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation that both men and women can enjoy.
I love the conversation myself. I can never get enough of talking about these topics.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, first of all, I was reading your bio and you know, your background. You were in corporate America for a long time, rose the ranks, climbed the corporate ladder, and you had some stress in your job.
Oh, yes.
And did that lead to what you're doing now? Tell me how it inspired you to do what you're doing now.
Yes, in many ways, I think it was my corporate life that really led me to wanting to have a better relationship with the night in general. I tended to find myself early in my corporate life struggling terribly with insomnia and also with a lot of negative, scary dreams that I was not sure why I was having such dreams because they didn't look anything like my waking life, and they certainly were disturbing to me. And I started to really, in the background, try to seek out ways to improve sleep and how to work with dreams. And there wasn't a whole lot of talk about sleep back then. It was more or less worn like a badge of honor to get by on minimal of it. And I knew, though, for me, this was doing a toll. And I really, from that, just became so passionate about the topic. I was able to get myself back to good, healthy sleep naturally. And a big part of my getting back to good, healthy sleep was starting to truly embrace the power of my dreams, looking forward to having them help me. And as I worked through those negative dreams, my life was getting sweeter. My dream life was getting sweeter. And it was always in the background for many years, supporting me both professionally and personally. And then at some point, I was just tremendously being nudged internally that this had become my true passion, and I wanted to spread the gift of better nights with others.
Well, you know, that's interesting you should say that because you hit on something where, you know, people I think sometimes don't look forward to going to sleep because they know what's on the other end. They know it's either going to be a restless night, overheating, no sleep, not much sleep, or crazy dreams, or all those even.
It can be all of them. I was having an onslaught. I never even thought about sleep before this started occurring for me. It just was something that naturally happened, and I didn't give it much thought. And suddenly I was dreading the bed. It was a mixture of finding myself up in the wee hours for long periods of time, very frustrated and exhausted, and a lot of worrying and fears and doubts in my mind. And then, yes, when I would fall back to sleep, or what I woke up with were these terrible dreams. And I was also dealing with things like sleep paralysis, where you find yourself awake, but you can't move. I was having a lot of hypnagogic hallucinations that were really scary, which is where when you're first like kind of falling asleep, you might see an imagery. And for me, it was like a spider coming down the ceiling at my face, and I'd be screaming and flailing. And it just was a lot of stuff that was not peaceful or pleasant. And when we start to struggle with the night, it does not take long before we have bought into, this is me now. I'm not capable of a good night of sleep. But we all are capable of moving in a better direction with sleep. It does start with owning that my body actually does know how to do this, if I can allow for the process and set myself up for better sleep.
Well, yeah, it sounds a lot like telling yourself not to beat yourself up, that things can improve. It's just like anyone who self-sabotages with eating or another habit, and they just keep beating themselves up, and it never gets better.
Yeah, it feeds on itself. It really can. And it's a helpless, hopeless feeling to not feel like you can do what seems like it should be the most simple thing to do. Especially when you're a very A-type control, ambitious personality by nature, and then you're failing at sleep. My goodness, what's wrong with me?
Yes, and you want to be more successful during your waking hours as well. And, for so many of us, we want to be on our best game during the day and have this great sleep at night. And it's like, what is causing all this? And so you obviously went to school to and really spent some time. As I remember in our Lunch and Learn where I met you, you spent a lot of time doing self-analysis and really putting yourself in the throes of some complicated sleep situations to get to the other side. I hope I'm not misinterpreting that, but that's how I saw it.
No, it's very true. For me, it was a very self-help approach. But it became a true passion of mine. And I wanted, and I still do, when I have time to just have time for myself, I tend to gravitate toward additional learning, and I'm just constantly, there's never an end to what we're learning about sleep wellness and new ways to understand what's happening in the night. And I think for me, it just truly became a passion topic. But for many I work with, they just want to have better sleep. And it's not something they want to understand in and out. And so it's great to be able to help others not have to know it all, but to have an ability for them to have someone to share their experience with, and then be able to pinpoint areas for them to be able to focus in on without having to know it all. But yeah, for me, it was going beyond what I was dealing with. It started with, what am I dealing with? And then when I saw I was so enjoying the process of a good night again, and working with my dreams was becoming such a big aspect, I saw so many people around me in the corporate world that truly were struggling with basically this sense of, this is just my norm. And I think it's so sad how few have little understanding about what's happening in their nights that's hindering maybe their sleep, when it's something we all do every night.
Yes. Well, let's start with sleep, in fact. I mean, what do you see are the most common sleep disorders, and how they can impact someone's daily life?
It really depends in, what setting you're in. Most of the individuals I personally would work with and encounter are not having, some of the more deep sleep disorders that may require the help of a sleep doctor. Things that I might refer out, obviously a common reality for many these days and underdiagnosed for sure, is sleep apnea. And so, without getting diagnosed for certain things like a sleep disorder of that nature, you could do everything you want to do on your own, and you're still going to not be getting the good, healthy sleep you need. So, it is. Some of that is certainly prevalent and not where I spend my focus. My focus is predominantly with individuals that are usually very ambitious, probably driven. Many of them are also familiar with being entrepreneurial or having very busy, hectic business lives or personal lives, and stress is doing a toll. They're having a hard time relaxing in bed, and what many of them dealing with is basic layers of insomnia, which technically would be deemed times you are struggling to either fall asleep initially for the night, or you're having an awakening or more than one in the night and you struggle to fall back to sleep. And we're talking for long periods of time, certainly more than 30 minutes, trying for multiple nights a week. If that's going on for several months, you're actually in a chronic state of insomnia. And then there are others who just don't feel like they're getting healthy, restful sleep. They still feel exhausted when they wake up, or they are waking up with a lot of emotions from dreams. And so I tend to work both with people who are dealing with sleep, but also people who are dealing with wanting to work with their dreams, understand what's happening in their dream life. And interestingly, it's usually separated, these topics. You either will find someone who works with dreams and they're kind of considered in this woo-woo world, and then you have people who work with sleep and they call dreaming REM, and it's just a function of the brain and we're learning and processing, but to talk about the subjective experience, we don't go there. I think they are so interwoven, you can't separate them. And that's what I think really differentiates a lot of my work, is that I look at it holistically. It's not we talk about sleep or we talk about dreams, it's all together. And when we look at them together, we're now talking about the full night of sleep, and it's all so important.
Do you see people who maybe come to you that haven't had good sleep, and you can get them to the point where not only are they having good sleep, but they're having dreams and remembering their dreams?
Yeah, I have clients that started as wanting to improve their sleep, and when we're improving our sleep, we're going to essentially be enhancing how much we're dreaming, because people who are sleep deprived, more than anything, they're dream deprived. Because by nature, we backload to the second half of the night of sleep much more of the REM, that rapid eye movement, dream fortified sleep. And so if I don't get through a whole night of sleep, if I derailed the process, lied in bed, and I missed a couple hours, the 2 hours I missed are the predominantly dreamy hours. So when someone starts to get better sleep, suddenly it's like, why am I having all these dreams? And what do these mean? And yeah, it becomes that next step for many. And then there are those that just still never have an interest in wanting to explore that topic. And even if you're getting good sleep, doesn't mean you're remembering the dreams, because a lot of people, they are just wake centric, and when you wake in the morning, you collapse into who am I, what am I doing, what's going on today, and off we go. And we really are good at leaving the dreams in the background and never even like having any of those memories come up. That doesn't mean we're not having them. On average, it's estimated we're having in a full night of sleep about 4 to 6 dreams.
Really?
95 to 99% go forgotten. We don't hold a working memory function the same way of dreams, which is why they collapse away so easily. And if we are very move into the day, into a mindset of the day quickly, it's so easy to leave these in the background.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, because at my worst, and that was when I was perimenopausal and menopausal, I was waking up between 2 and 4 in the morning, and I always joked I could find a group of people who were awake at that time, and that we should start a club and call each other. But the day that you call someone at 2 o'clock in the morning is the day that they get a good night's sleep. But I noticed that was pretty common, and I wasn't remembering or having dreams. But that once I changed my health patterns, my lifestyle, and really my sleep patterns, my routine, and started sleeping better, I started having these vivid dreams and remembering them to the point now that I'll write down some that I really remember, because I think it's really, I put them in my phone. I just think it's, relevant part of my history and my journey. So,
Susie, you're so right. They're experiences. Mm-hmm. And we tend to relegate them to this non-reality, like silliness. And what's the point? Mostly because that's the messaging we got. Just forget about it. It's just a dream. I always tease my mom chalked mine up to something I ate. And it's some messaging like that most of us got from a young age that taught us these aren't worthy. But just being willing to write an experience of a dream experience, even if you did nothing more with it, starts to hone you into this other aspect of your life that is part of who you are and what you're doing in this life, just, in the night.
I do remember one person getting mad at me for a dream that they had. And it wasn't my dream. It wasn't my head. It was them. So
that is so common, especially with partners. Someone cheats on you in the night. There's this tendency to assume my subconscious must know something. You had to have done something wrong. And also in our dreams, many of us are holding a first person kind of egoic experience where it feels like I'm me and you're you. And with the limited awareness we have of dreams, so many of us, we do say like, oh, you were in my dream last night, as if it were you. And in reality, it was my dream. Therefore, my dream was creating a representation of you. So why did I have you do that to me? Would probably be a better question.
And those emotions, I can totally relate to having a dream, and also back to that person having a dream about me, where that emotion they had during that dream, or I had an emotion during that dream, lingers for me throughout the day. It's like I can't shake it. And I bet that that's probably a common situation too that people have, is whether it's a fear or a sadness, or maybe seeing a relative that's passed.
Yes. Again, they are experiences. And while we're in them, most of the time we're not aware we're in a dream. We are, free of our prefrontal cortex part of self. That is that rationing, linear, I know who I am in the waking world part of me. Although that part can click in to a dream. And that's called a lucid dream. Most dreams we're in, at the time we're in them, we are bought in that this is reality. And of course, it is some version of reality who says this is reality, but in that moment, we don't realize we're in a dream. And also, we have a very active amygdala when we're dreaming, which is that emotional house that does ensure that we're connecting with emotionality. Because in many ways, dreams are a part of our emotion regulation, is what dream research points to. And the emotions are a great way to bridge to my waking life. What are the thoughts and feelings I'm having in a dream have a pretty good role to play in finding what is this story about, because it doesn't look like my waking life, but I bet I can find those emotions or that feeling or thought pattern. But dreams exaggerate it, so this becomes very confusing as well. But generally speaking, like any memory, if something feels really emotional that happened to me, I'm going to hold it for maybe years. Many of us have dreams we're holding from childhood still because of how emotional they were. And then just like a lot of waking day experiences, much of it we're going to not hold on to in our consciousness. And the same with dreams. Many just go by the wayside. But the more I've had a dream experience that woke me up with fear or deep sadness or horror or some sort of amazing joy, well, now I've got a memory that's probably going to stick, at least for the day, but maybe for a long time.
Yeah, I would guess too that it made me think of something about dreams. To me, it seems like dreams are just my mind processing something and trying to process it out. of my system, kind of like a detox.
Yeah, you could certainly find evidence that that's a part it plays. There's still a lot of debate in the scientific community about dreaming. And the tricky thing about dreaming is it is a type of consciousness. And we have scientists across the world that come together to have consciousness conferences to debate what is consciousness in the waking reality, let alone the dream world. So science doesn't understand consciousness, and dreaming, when we're in it, we are having a type of consciousness. So philosophers throughout the ages have tried to answer the question, what's the meaning of life? Asking what's the meaning of a dream is similar in that there's probably not any one, oh, it's all about this. We certainly know it must be essential, or we would have found a way to not need it anymore. And all animals, except they have found one fish in the sea that seems to not need to sleep. Dreaming, they haven't fully, even an octopus, is it octopi or octopus? They seem to even dream. But when all is said and done, yeah, part of the consensus in the scientific community is certainly around emotion regulation, really processing that learning and memory of the day, helping consolidate, make associations. I have come to see in many ways dreams as being like a digestive system, but for experiences. So I've got food that I take in today, and it's going to have to get broke down. Where does this go? What do I do with it? What just gets flushed away? I have experiences all day long. I'm thinking about things and dealing with things. And then I go to sleep tonight. My hippocampus starts to move, working memory into going towards long-term memory, a lot of functioning in the night to consolidate. But it seems dreams tend to flag and prioritize certain experiences I need to better digest, probably because I have a lot of emotion or it's important in my life. And the more I feel a negative emotion, the more likely my dream life's going to prioritize it, because dreams are a way we're trying to create equilibrium and balance. So dreams have been called overnight therapy for the way they tend to force us to confront and process the stuff we really need to work with. So yeah, it's doing this kind of stuff, but then that is relegating to just one way dreams maybe operate, because there are amazing experiences people can have in their dreams that do seem to take us beyond the psyche processing and the mind work and into the experiential of spiritual connections or messages or glimpses. So there's things that go beyond, the things science is already trying to pinpoint. Well, it does this and it does that. But science can only look at measurements and what the brain is doing and certain kinds of studies and tests. And let's face it, there's a lot of spiritual stuff that happens in waking life. Science has no way to work with either. So I think that we have a lot we don't know.
Oh yeah, I've watched a podcast. Actually, it was many hours with a gentleman, Dr. Matt Walker.
Yeah, Why We Sleep.
Yes, Why We Sleep. He was fascinating. I was listening to him in a car on a drive across the country, and it was just really fascinating, his work. But my question goes back to, if we have bad days, does that mean we have bad dreams?
Well, it depends. When all is said and done, a bad day is subjective, obviously, but how we handle it has more to play with what that's going to do in our dream life than the day itself. So we have certainly a world full of experiences that run the spectrum. And sometimes in the most dire of situations, we have individuals that we see examples of great heroism and courage and strength and balance and ability to move through and not get stuck in some sort of, psychological distress. And then we have others that can get very stuck in situations and be more likely to be ruminating and worrying and projecting into what does this mean. The way we are handling our situations are certainly is probably a much bigger determination as to what my dream life's going to decide I need support with. And some of us are dealing with some big stuff really well. And others of us are not doing a good job dealing with the things that we're facing. And our dream mind, more than anything, I seem to find with the work I've done in my own dreams and with others, the more I am stuck in a pattern that does not do me well, that could be a belief pattern, that could be a thought pattern, that could be a situation pattern. But the more I am not thriving in some way, and I have a lack of balance emotionally, mentally, or physically, that's where dreams want to go. And so I could be very balanced in a really awful situation, and I may not even have it affect my dream life.
Interesting. Well, I bet that's a lot of people you do see, are people who, if you're seeing these entrepreneurs and producers and people who are high achievers, they're always constantly solving problems and moving to the next level. And if they're stuck, I would imagine that is affecting their sleep. Plus, it's affecting their health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really, it runs the gamut. There are people who I'll work with them on a dream and they're having these terrible experiences in the dream, but then they become superwoman and they can fly over buildings and doing all these amazing things. And then when we reflect on how that is related to how they're, moving through the previous days before the dream, oh my gosh, there was a calamity of things going on, but I was like feeling so powerful about, look at how I handled it. And I was like superwoman. So it's kind of processing this, that kind of reality. There are other times when people may seem on the surface to have it all under control, but underneath the surface, they are feeling all kinds of doubt and fear and a sense of lack of control and fear of failure that surfaces very clearly in our dream life.
Yeah, it's kind of like the duck that you see them above the water and it seems calm, but underneath, yeah, they're going crazy. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure. Are reoccurring dreams significant? Do you see that a lot?
Very common. In surveys they've looked at, it's probably about 2/3 of us that are having them at any given time. And recurring themes do tend to, by nature, be more in the negative arena. They do tend to have negative emotions. They tend to come up during stressful times. Many refer to it as their stress dream. And they are recognizing a pattern. So of all the dreams someone might want to actually explore for themselves, a recurring theme or a recurring dream, I think, goes right up to the top of the list, because by nature, the mere fact I keep having this kind of dream show up is showing me a pattern. And if for whatever reason that is not a pleasant dream, all the more if I can get underneath what is this dream about and work with the content of the dream to reflect on where in my waking life can I make some shifts that can affect my not needing this dream anymore. And oh, you know what? If I make those changes, my waking life's going to get better. And in this way, my dream life became my best self-help in life, because I was having all kinds of growth challenges internally, externally. And my dreams were really allowing me to directly be able to see what patterns am I falling into, or what is the way I'm handling this. And then if I were bridging that to my waking life, I could start to use dreams as inspired action for bettering the waking situation in a way that I was maybe never going to get to with my conditioned belief patterns way of seeing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking about something as I was listening to you, and on the flip side, if I have been mulling over something, I will I'll let it sit for a while, and then what I'll do is I will solve the problem. Like I'll wake up with the problem solved, and I'll come up with a conclusion. I'm like, Great. It didn't take me that long just to wake up and have this problem solved. And I wonder on the flip side, can sleep and dreams, help us with solving problems and being more creative and the other side, and that it's not all bad rumination, that it is a process for us to go through.
Absolutely. Sleep on it. Probably some of the most sage advice. Or some people say to consult the pillow. I love that one. And when all is said and done, we tend to think, I got to figure this out. I got to figure this out with my waking mind that only has some of the information. It's fascinating how little our conscious mind gets to process, but that there's so much more. There's a different awareness that's not part of our conscious awareness. It's more of in the subconscious and unconscious awareness that is so beyond anything I can consciously know. When we trust that I'm more than this mind I am awake with, and we start to realize the night is a time we do hand off the problems, hand off the task that we're learning. Harvard has done studies that show we come back better at the tasks we were just learning significantly after we've had dream sleep. PNAS has done studies that show creativity boosts occur after we've had REM sleep. So when we lie awake with a problem, we're actually hindering the best part of the sleep process for coming back naturally better. And my very first way I started working with my dreams was with what is called dream incubation, which is the process of handing a problem off to the night and then looking at any dreams that come along in the morning for ideas and inspiration. And that doesn't even necessarily mean you have to remember the dream. You may just wake up with, I know what to do, because the work was done and it can trickle in. So beautiful to hand off the problem to the night, because yes, the dreams are helping us better emotion regulate for what we're going through and better consolidate what it feels like to be me in this situation, and playing with ideas, playing with new ways to think or handle it in a really rich environment where we are free of our normal thought patterns and belief patterns. One of the reasons dreams are so bizarre is probably for the variability for them to put ideas together in a way we just never could or would. And maybe some of that becomes irrelevant and some of it is brilliance.
Yeah. You wonder, it'd be interesting to interpret the brains of some of our geniuses and our modern day geniuses, whether it was Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, and to see, gosh, what kind of dreams do they have? And do they wake up saying, I'm gonna build a spaceship and everyone's gonna want to be on it?
Yes. Well, Steve Jobs, I think one thing he was quoted as saying is intuition is a powerful thing, more powerful than intellect. And Einstein certainly has many quotes related to intuition, including one I believe was something along the lines of the most valuable thing is intuition. And I think greats throughout history, both from a scientific perspective, inventors, and certainly creators of all sorts have recognized that there's something about the right-brained awareness that brings brilliance. And dreams are so about that other way of thinking and processing that the rational mind is really not equipped to do in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that, and I love this conversation because I think there's something for everybody, and I think it allows. It sounds like it allows dreams allow us to go somewhere where we can't go in the waking hours. But as you said, you can have some really vivid and some interesting things that you wouldn't have created. And I wonder too if you could speak to naps, because what I understand about naps are, don't take them too late in the day because they'll interfere with your sleep at night, and don't take too long a nap because that will affect your sleep as well.
Yes, those are two good tips if we don't want it to disrupt the night. Now, there are individual circumstances where someone may be doing shift work or someone may be in the midst of some type of sleep disorder where having a good lengthy nap becomes part of their way of getting their sleep needs met. But generally speaking, for most healthy, active adults, a nap can have brilliance if done the right way. If someone is dealing with insomnia, where they are struggling with the night, a nap can be very tempting and can feel absolutely essential. And yet, to truly get on the other side of insomnia, if we want to have good sleep in the bed, we may need to forego the nap altogether, really to help the body click into a sleep efficiency with the bed. And that can feel worse before it feels better. But for those who are not dealing with insomnia, who are capable of taking a nap, because not everyone feels they can take a nap. If you do have a nap, they have been shown to be quite amazing for enhancing our energy level, our creativity level, our cognition when we return from that nap. And the right nap is usually something under 30 minutes. Some studies show 10 and 15 and 20. NASA has done studies on naps that all are under that 30-minute mark for really both enhancing all those things, energy, cognition, and creativity, while not taking a bunch of sleep drive away from the bed tonight. And yeah, if we want to do a nap, we don't want to do it after 3. We really need that sleep drive for the bed to be building in those last hours of our waking time. Probably a really good time for many of us, if we could do a nap, would be around 1:30. Most of us, our circadian rhythms are such we will have a cortisol dip at about 1:30 in the afternoon. And it may feel like a good time to do a little nap, but set a timer and get yourself back up before 30 minutes of sleep has occurred.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in setting my watch or my phone, and I might set it for a few minutes more just so that I can spend a few minutes winding down.
Yeah, because you're not going to often, unless you're sleep deprived. If you're sleep deprived, you might be going to be conking out.
Or you have a cortisol issue and you crash, and like after eating that you crash and you have to do something. So
I like to, whenever naps are a topic, also mention many of us are dealing with afternoon lulls, or we're talking about brain fog. And we definitely want to ensure that if we're dealing with that, we start looking at our hydration levels through the morning and into the early part of the afternoon, because our brain is on average around 80% water content. If I am dehydrated even 2%, I'm going to have a cognition decline, and we don't often associate one with the other. So, I've had people who were dealing with a lot of, I just can't make it through the afternoon, that just started to truly focus in on doing better with hydration through the earlier part of the day, saw a big difference.
That's a great tip. I have never heard that. But I'm a big believer in starting my day with a glass of water and working out and getting 2 glasses of water in during that time, and then spreading it out before 7 o'clock at night, so that and then I'll have a little sips at night with some things that I take. But I'm glad to know that, because I am a big believer in hydration, and I would, dehydration. Sometimes people confuse dehydration with hunger. And so I always say hunger, drink a glass of water before you eat something.
Great idea. And I love that you mention first thing in the morning. We wake up a little dehydrated, most all of us. And many of us are just like, get me that first cup of coffee. And that Coffee for many of us, a cup in the morning is a way we might start the day. But no, it is a dehydrating beverage, and you're already dehydrated upon waking. So as you're making that first cup, getting your first glass of water in is such a great thing to do.
It's so easy too. You get up, and if you have a routine in the morning, something else, and I keep going back to Dr. Walker, but he mentioned how important the morning routine is to your evening sleep. And I want you to speak to that, as well as I want you to, tell me about like what we can do to wind down and then at night to have a better sleep, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. So it's interesting how really what we do in the morning might be the most important thing for our sleep tonight. And for starters, many of us are just not introducing the right lighting into our lives in the morning. And by the right lighting is getting sunlight. And for our circadian health, which is that inner timekeeper, that's really a big aspect of our wake and sleep cycles. So we want to have good energy and metabolism as we move into the day. We want to have good sleep at night. And we really have an opportunity every morning to help set that next 24-hour cycle for our brain to know the day has officially begun. When our morning begins is like the most important thing we could probably do. So, what would that mean? That would mean actually getting out on a patio or going out on a stroll, free of sunglasses for about 10 to 15 minutes, not staring at the ball of the sun, of course, but allowing yourself to get some sunlight hitting your face so that some is getting in your eyes. So, of course, we need vitamin D, and that is with the skin, but that has nothing to do with what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is getting sun in your eyes, because we have receptors in our retinas that actually seek a morning spectrum of sunlight to signal the brain that our day's begun. And many of us just don't do this, and therefore the brain is constantly seeking lighting cues of what time is it? Is it day or is it night? We get not enough light in our eyes during the day, and then we have all this bright light in our nights. And so the brain gets really confused about what time is it. Very simple ritual. If you cannot do this with natural sunlight for your schedule or your environment, there are specifically for this purpose seasonal affective disorder lamps that mimic the kind of brightness that morning sun needs to give that signal. And that could be something you need to spend maybe 20 minutes in the morning with it really close to you. Again, not staring at one, but having it direct at you. Really great for helping us get into a rhythm. And this can be a way we quickly affect our circadian health, is darkness at night and sunlight in the morning, but also through the day. Open drapes, open shades, get ambient light in your environment. All these are important signals so the brain knows all day long it's still day, it's still day. Also, getting some movement going in the earlier part of the day. We don't want to save our workout for the night unless it's gentle stretches or something that helps bring on the parasympathetic nervous system. That'll help the metabolism, and exercise is good for sleep. We want that sleep drive. We want a good functioning body. But exercise is unique to every person. Even just a nice stroll is a great way to kind of take a break in the afternoon, both getting your sunlight and, getting some of that exercise. But I'd say for morning, it's also important for our circadian health, which is going to affect our wake sleep cycles. Be consistent with when you break your fast. And even drinking coffee is technically breaking our fast, because that's something we're going to have to metabolize. And if I sometimes have breakfast, or sometimes I don't, or sometimes I have breakfast at 8 a.m. and sometimes I wait till 10 a.m., that is a way we're also confusing the rhythm of our body. So trying to keep things within an hour is a really good idea. And the same with our last meal of the day. Keeping that consistently timed within an hour is a way to help keep our circadian rhythm healthy. With the sunlight, by the way, ideally we do this within an hour of when we've started our day. so that we're helping clue our brain, when does our day begin? If we can do that within an hour of that time, 2 hours at the latest, this is a good timing for that. And with the natural sun, we're talking 10, 15 minutes.
You've answered my question about the morning, and if you're not in an environment where sun comes up and you're able to see it. So you've answered that question. But when should someone have their last meal of the day?
Well, we're all a unique individual, and there is no one size fits all formula. That said, when it comes to circadian health and good sleep, there is evidence that we want to not be eating within 3 hours of when we go to bed. And some would say even as long as 4 hours. The more my digestion is active in the bed, the more likely my sleep's going to be fragmented. And we don't want that. So there are those among us, however, who may find ourselves in the night with our stomach growling. That's not going to help your sleep. There may be some of us that have blood sugar level things happening in the night that need to have a sleep sustaining, blood sugar calming, snack closer to bed. When we are having something closer to bed, keeping it really low calorie and a combination of healthy fat, fiber, protein is a good way to make sure we're not going to create a blood sugar spike. So something like maybe a whole grain slice of toast with peanut butter. Maybe you could do something with some cottage cheese or yogurt in there. Maybe a little oatmeal with some slivered almonds and some milk are all like options that actually could give you a little bit of sustaining, not spike your blood sugar, but those are good foods for sleep too.
Yeah, great suggestions.
Oh, by the way, a lovely little snack would be something like nuts, pistachio nuts, almonds, high in melatonin, naturally good, healthy fiber, fat, protein, good for, maybe if I need a little something.
It's really interesting you gave all those suggestions, because those are the same ones I give to people who are snackers with a spouse. Like they talk about snacking in front of the TV, and they want to have healthier snacks because they tend to have things that aren't as good for them and they feel guilty about it. And so I'll always give them some suggestions, and those were all the same suggestions. So,
Yeah. One other might be popcorn. At least it's good in fiber. And, but of course, if it's caramel popcorn or really, really buttery popcorn, we tend to put some things on our popcorn that probably not as good. And as far as an evening routine to help move towards sleep, we just don't think about the process of, we don't think about the process of preparing for the journey. We kind of let ourselves just crash into it. And there is a lot to be said for recognizing that this is a sacred space and time. There's a lot of activity and work to be done. You wouldn't head out of the house for an active day without doing a little preparation. You're getting the right, clothing and preparation. Maybe you bring your lunch or and then we just fall asleep on the couch and find ourselves in the bed somehow. And then we wonder why at 3 a.m. we're like, wired again, because we've done nothing to really prepare. I'd say probably of all the things that are most important, we do want to set some line in the sand. If we can have a regular, I tend to fall asleep at X time, really good for our rhythms. But don't send yourself to bed if you're not sleepy. If I should be sleeping and I am wired, well, I've been probably doing some activities that are very hyper arousing. Start to put a line in the sand. 30 minutes before my I want to be sleeping time, I should not be starting a new show. I should not be working on a work project. I should not be looking at LED screens. I should have some ritual that includes something to prepare my body. That could be gentle stretching. That could be some sort of breath work. One of the most great ways we can help our body know I'm not in fight or flight mode anymore. There's lots of different ones. Some people are very uncomfortable with breath. I'm sure you could share a lot more about breath, but there is definitely a lot of kind of coherent or calming breaths we can turn to. We do want to think about, how am I relaxing my mind? That can be making sure that the things that are going to wake me up at 3 a.m. bothering me, I've given some space. I've cleared the queue. I've written out the things I need to and want to do tomorrow so that my subconscious knows that it doesn't have to remind me at 2 a.m. I've wrote it down. And I also want to do something to help my spirit be ready to move into the night. So something calming, maybe a little ritual of my own. For some people, that might be prayer. For some, it might be journaling. For some, it may be visualizing, meditation, maybe even just reading something that inspires me, uplifts me before bed to take me out of all the media and the wake world problems of the day and back to center. And a great way to kind of hand off to the night would be maybe even to write a request to my dream life. Here's what I'd love for you to help me with in the night. Give me a solution on this, or help me see what I need to do here, or how can I get inspired there? Trust that I'm not giving up on my life because I'm going to sleep. I'm ready to hand off the baton so I can rest this part of myself so a whole nother part of me can become active and do its work.
I can speak to all of this because that has certainly helped me over the last 3 years change my sleep. And having either a sound system or having an Alexa that plays acoustic music or soothing music for a little while that calms my brain. I always have had like a piece of paper, a pad of paper and a pen by my bedside, because there were times when I would get up in the middle of the night with, writing things down, and then I couldn't, like, what did I write? What was I thinking? But that was my way of trying to purge things too. But I've found that the music helps me get to sleep easily. And it's just been a consistent pattern of mine to get into. So you've just kind of confirmed everything that I've been doing these few years. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. By the way, they make little light pens. So for those of us who might find, I need to make a note in the night, they're usually for like dark meetings or something, and you can get them cheap, or you can get yourself a nice one. But I, at some point, had got myself a little light pen so that when I needed to make a note, there was a little bit of lighting where the pen would hit. But there was a study that found if we take about 5 minutes before we've sent ourselves to bed, and it doesn't have to be right before bed, but before you end your day, just to write everything I need to and want to do tomorrow, not in my head, but on a piece of paper, that the subconscious mind tended to be much more calm about it in the night, because there's one thing that is important to know about our subconscious mind, and that is it does think some of its job is to keep reminding me of unfinished tasks. So before bed, it feels like, it's not a problem because sleep drives help and kick us in. But when we're captive at 3 a.m. on the pillow, anything we've done to like help the subconscious mind calm about it is great. And writing things down, a great way to calm the subconscious.
You're saying write things down if you wake up in the middle of the night as well as you're writing down.
Yeah. Now, hopefully, if you're someone who's doing a lot of task-oriented thinking in the night, some of us can calm most all of that just by making sure before we've ended the day, we've written down for tomorrow everything I need to focus on, everything I want to and need to do. Some of us just wait till the morning to think about our to-do list, and just switching that little thing towards, I write tomorrow's to-do list before I close out the day makes a huge impact. They did a study that found people fell asleep better and didn't have as bad awakenings just by taking 5 minutes before the end of the day to ensure it's been done.
Something I was just thinking about as you were talking, as people wake up from the evening sleep, do you suggest they kind of sit in bed for a minute or so for a little while to sort of process that night's sleep, or to just sort of slowly wake up? Instead, there's other people that have to pop up, because if they don't pop right up, they're going to go back to sleep. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I think the most beautiful way to rise in the morning is potentially not needing an alarm clock. Honestly, if we're getting our right amount of sleep, we will wake up naturally. So if I have to have an alarm to wake up, that's a good indication I'm not giving myself enough time for my sleep. But beyond that, if I did need an alarm clock, and you might set it even though you know you're going to wake up right before it, but if I do need an alarm clock, some sort of ease me awake alarm option is such a better way to wake to our morning. When we have a jolt me awake alarm clock, we are affecting our nervous system right out the gate. It's like we're throwing ourselves into this fight or flight mode before the day's even begun. And it's just not good to bring ourselves into the day in such a way. And there are some amazing ease you awake alarm options, progressive alarms, the hatch turns on like a light and then does music if it doesn't wake you. And they'll all make sure you eventually get up, and what level of noise you personally need is a unique thing. But starting really quiet and easing awake, a very good method for waking up. And when we do wake, now there's many of us that have just left ourselves to the last moment. And so, I would just say the more we don't jump out of bed like, with an alarm clock, the better. For those of us who allow for some space, which is a better way, I think, just spiritually to do it, laying there, lingering, when I wake in the morning, on any morning I can, I'll just collapse right back into whatever sleep position I was in, close my eyes, and let myself solidify what was just happening in my dream life. Sometimes I don't know I had a dream, but just being with the silent, groggy state for a minute, it's surprisingly how often you can reconnect with what were you just doing, because morning is the dream time. So when we wake up in the morning, we were just dreaming, even if we don't remember it, and we have a better shot of getting some of that back if we just give some space for it. It's like any relationship. It can only happen if we make some room for it. And if someone wants to have a relationship with their dreams, it does start with saying, you're important enough for me. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to show up here in the morning. Even if I knew I woke up with a dream, they tend to collapse away quickly for many of us. Just laying there for a couple of minutes thinking about my dream, I'm solidifying some working memory. It's less likely it's just going to collapse away immediately when I sit up that way. And at the end of the day, I think that, we want to try, if we can, to greet the day with some grace and some calm, and not immediately grab the phone and move to the media and the problems or the worries of the day, and do something to embrace the connection with life. So that's a lovely way, if the sun has come up already, for some of us to have that intention setting while we're getting our sun in the morning.
That's a lovely exercise. That's something I know I need to do more of, is wake up with grace and appreciation for the day. And I have one friend who, she says, every time I wake up in the morning, she said, thank you, God. That's her way of greeting the day.
I have a very similar, I wake up, oh, I'm alive. It's the world. I have a little gratitude I say, and then I really work to, because I love my dream life, connect with that part of me that was just happening, and then move into the waking day, because, it's wonderful to be a part of this realm, and yet we tend to collapse into a very wake-centered, focused reality so quickly.
Yes, we do, unfortunately. So, Leah, you've shared so many good tips, and it's been so fascinating to talk to you today. I wonder, what's your SOS for the person who's listening or watching today? Do you have a few tips that people can take with them that could make a difference in their sleep and dream life?
Yeah, I mean, some of it we did explore. For me, it's first of all, actually honoring and seeing sleep as sacred. That was a big deal for me, to start to not resent what was going on in the night and resist or fear or dread, but to start to create a sacred environment, my bedroom as my sanctuary, and do things environmentally I knew were really supportive of making that a peaceful, restful place for me. The Dalai Lama had said sleep is the best meditation. So our bedroom should maybe embrace this idea. Where would I have my best meditation take place? And even before I feel maybe it's my sleep sanctuary from a reality in the bed, I can start to embrace my bedroom feels for me like this wonderful place. I can't wait to get into the bed. I do think we have got to learn how to do a little preparing for the journey. If that's only going to be 10 or 15 minutes for you, then at least do that. Do something to calm my body, something to calm my mind, and something to hand off my spirit to the night. And that is totally up to you which of those maybe you do. There's lots of options, some that we spoke about, of course. And then I would just say, be aware and okay that every night is its own journey. And so we tend to, with all this sleep scoring, be overly focused on the data of the night. And for many people I work with sleep, I am actually encouraging them for at least a little while. Let's stop looking at the data and get back to how do I feel I slept? We know a lot about our sleep and we can trust that but for many of us, we've stopped feeling I can because I have the opportunity to get data. Well, there's not 100% accuracy in these anyway. And when I have allowed the data to tell me what kind of day I'm going to have, or get over focused on trying to perfect the night, I'm not embracing that every night is its own adventure and different things are going to happen. But if I can be aware of how I feel I slept, do I remember my awakenings? Did I have any dreams? And what was I doing different that night that might have helped it or hurt it? And be okay that some nights are not as good as other nights. It doesn't mean my sleep is doomed. So I'd say, yeah, those would probably be my three SOSs. Just embrace that every night's a new journey and they're not always going to be the same, but recognize what's happening and how I feel about it. Prepare for that journey, for sure. And allow yourself to really, have, an awareness that it's sacred, and I want to create a space that makes it that way for me.
Yeah, and that sacred space can be nice sheets and
for sure.
The blanket, the comforter, the pillows, the smell, the temperature of the room. All those contribute to that sacred.
Yeah. There have been multiple studies that have found if we sleep in a cluttered environment, sleep will be more fragmented. Our subconscious mind picks up on these signals. So sometimes it's as simple as just clearing the space a little bit, knowing that my subconscious mind can relax in this space because it's not got all these reminders of things that need to still be done.
Yes, definitely. Is there, and we covered so many things, and I could certainly see us extending this conversation or having a follow-up one, which I'd love to do. But is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers?
Just would want to throw out one other tidbit, and that is awakenings in the night can be a natural, normal part of sleep architecture. And a lot of people I talk to, they're coveting this idea that I should never wake. And that's a beautiful thing when you've had a night of sleep and you're not aware you had any awakenings. That's lovely. And that is not necessarily the norm. And it's not the only indication of a good night of sleep. And everybody, even good sleepers, are having micro awakenings between sleep cycles in the night. We're not in a coma. We're not in one long phase that, this idea of non-interrupted sleep we hear about. It's one thing if I get called off to the hospital through a pager, or I've got a baby crying in the night, or I'm up for an hour and a half. But if I woke, maybe I even used the restroom, I'm back asleep in 5 or 10, 15 minutes max. That is not something to even lose any sleep over because it's just a normal part of the night. So to not let awakenings, derail your sleep mentally and think that they're horrible and something's going wrong is an important, I think, normalization we need to make. There are serious things that can cause awakenings, but even good, healthy sleepers have awakenings.
Boy, I wish I could clip this particular part of our conversation off and just share it with everyone, because that is what I hear. Well, I was awake a couple times during the middle of the night, or I was awake once, and just to hear that that's normal, and not to beat yourself up over it either, you know?
It is like chasing a phantom to say, I'll only be sleeping good when I never wake.
Yes. So, Leah, how can people get a hold of you if they'd like to talk to you further?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I so enjoy this conversation and be always happy to have another. And I do, of course, have my website, Leah, Leah Bolen, Bolen, at Comcast.net. I just gave you my email address. That is not my website. But Leah Bolen, www.leahbolen.com is my website. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Leah Bolen is how I'm listed there. Instagram is Leah Ann Bolen. And I do have a podcast on dreams, Dream Interpretation Station. You can go to www.dreaminterpretationstation.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find it there.
Oh, Leah, I've just so enjoyed reconnecting with you in this conversation. It's been helpful. It's been informative. You've shed some misconceptions about sleep and dreams, and I know that people who are listening or watching are going to take something away with this conversation, this podcast episode. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on, and I hope our paths cross again.
Me too, Susie. Thank you for having me, and thanks for all your listeners for joining.
Thank you. Well, friends, sadly, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for listening or watching to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And thank you, Leah, for joining me today. What I enjoyed about today's conversation is that there's a lot of scientific knowledge for us to learn and understand about sleep and dreams. And Leah certainly shared some scientific information. And she also shared a lot of tips and routines that we can do to help improve our sleep and also enhance our dreams. And so I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed participating in it. A quick reminder on how you can support this podcast. You can like, share, and subscribe. You can send me a review, or if you have a question, maybe that question will be answered on an upcoming episode. Follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And if you'd like to be added to my email newsletter, feel free to send me your email and I'll add you to the list. If you have any interest in coaching or breathwork sessions, I'd love to chat with you as well. So until next time, take care, and I hope our paths cross again.